Welcome back to Eternal Sonata. So,
Whoa!
let's switch to two characters who Joe eventually always won on dialogues. Allegretto and Beat. The first one is voiced by Sam Riegel, the second by Mona Marshall.
Both of which I recognize from quite a few things. Sam Riegel from, well,
I
let's
wonder,
see.
Joe.
He was,
It's good to see that Mona Marshall managed to find some more great work South Park aside, because her prime...
he was also Brave Fencer Musashi, you know.
I would agree. I haven't heard that much about her, but aside from South Park, I don't really like her roles.
She was in Digimon.
Oh. Well, Jova, sorry to tell you that, but if it's anime dubbed, I don't really particularly care about it.
I'd say Mona was played at her best, you know, with Brave Fencer Musashi. You know,
anyway,
high-pitched boy.
These two are basically orphans who live in a hideout near the sewers of Ritardando. The reason why we're stealing bread is because everything is expensive, so we basically go Robin Hood and give bread to the poor.
No, Tio. The better example is Riff Raff, Street Rat, Scoundrel, take that! Just a little snack, guys.
Take it open, take it back, guys. Yeah.
What do we do if we get attacked?
Basically, they can't afford it.
Don't let a few rats get you all freaked out.
Allegretto, I agree with that, but Beat is a 10-year-old kid. I would remind this constantly through the entire game. Beat is a 10-year-old kid, and you're pitting him against rats the size of a golden retriever.
If this was Beat from World Ends with You, then maybe it would be okay, but not. So,
if this was Beat in the World Ends with You, it will be much more genre-savvy, at least.
So, of course, this was one of Sam Riegel's biggest roles before, you know, he got some bigger attention.
At this point, in video games-wise, he was chock full in the Tales of franchise. He voiced Flynn in Tales of Ritardando? Yeah, it's a music tempo, basically.
It basically means for slowing down, musically was. Yes, the implications of that word do ring true, but that is kind of where the slur came from.
Interesting wording.
Basically.
Okay. Basically, Pedro, it's about like, well, that was the musical term before it got turned into a term for
Not only that, Pedro, the proper Italian, I think it's Latin, more like the origin thing, because it's also. Don't worry, Jova, it's minor dialogue. I just put it in case there was nothing to talk about, but don't worry, it's skippable in this case. So, the NPCs do not give you that much of an input here.
Let me guess. There's monsters in the basement that the priest wants us to clear out?
Not yet, Jova. Don't worry. And these were not rats, Jova. But it doesn't excuse the fact that our very first official dungeon is a fucking sewer level with giant rats in it.
Oh, goody.
Talk about by the book.
For those who...
anyway...
No, go ahead.
What I was saying... I forgot what I was saying.
You were saying something about the production for this game
actually,
involving Sam Riegel.
The proper word, ritardo.
Ritardando.
From Latin. No, in general, the original word, the root word, ritardo. It's in the common language, aside from the derogatory terms, obviously, it's used to indicate being late by something. If I say, for example, I have a date and I show up late, and I will say in Italian, "Scusa, sono in ritardo." I'm late for this. That's what it means.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's been used as a derogatory for minority affects by disabilities, which again, it's just bad.
Yeah.
But in context of music, it makes sense. By the way, that stone right there is gonna be used way later in the game. What are you doing? Whatever.
Hey, what are you kids from Destiny Islands doing here?
The city of Ritardando is basically, it's not gonna be your hub world. Forget about having a central hub world in this game. The level structure and the city structure is much more similar to, say, Final Fantasy X. In a sense that you have linear paths and linear structure of the city on fixed cameras. You cannot rotate it properly. So you have to get to deal with what the limit space are supposed to go on. There is stuff to do, so to me, in my book, it makes it automatically better than anything Final Fantasy 13 or 13.2 did. but still not enough to be a straightforward JRPG. But this game is really right. It was just because of fucking up ourselves.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Actual hideout of indeed. Fun fact about. Go ahead, Jonah. Oh, sorry. Well, you have occasion for reading some lines later, but yeah, but for context, yeah, both Allegretto and Jonah mentioned with them.
Anyway, just to continue what I was saying, for those who are not aware, Mona Marshall's primary main role that she's always had throughout the years is Sheila Broflovsky, Kyle's dad from South Park. You might remember her from her legendary catchphrase, "What?" every time she's mad about something. She's been voicing Sheila Broflovsky since 2000. And she's still doing it to this day, more recently with Fractured Butthole.
She also used to voice Wendy Testenberger in like the earlier seasons.
Yes. She wait, hold on. Wait, wasn't right now? I think April Stewart is the one voicing.
Come on, Beat.
I know. I'm talking about earlier seasons, though. Mona Marshall was the voice for Wendy Testenberger.
I think so. I'll look it up.
Wait a minute. I thought I taught you all that.
I know that right now April Stewart is the one who voices it. Go ahead.
Okay. That's actually clever, Aquo, making it so that, Beat's a bit young and forgetful, so it makes sense that we may need to teach him the tutorial for this.
Well, this is typical in games, Jova. Like, again, unlike what the original Final Fantasy 13 would maybe do, where it just dumps text on you, this is what a good, or at the very least a competent game would do. It actually manages to find, how can we convey this information to the audience? Okay, we have Beat, who's a young kid. We can just have him be, inexperienced, so Allegretto has to explain shit to him. This is such a simple thing that for some reason, to this day, there are still writers who can't figure this out. And I don't understand why.
Mainly it's in JRPGs that seem to have this problem more than anything else for some reason.
In games, but even in writing, there's still the occasional... But even in films, there's still the occasional writer who, for some reason, forgets that this simple trick exists for some reason. I don't know.
You know what's even easier for exposition that a lot of writers forget? Just have a narrator.
All right.
So Tio, okay.
Sorry,
so Tio,
guys, can you give me a time?
Okay, go ahead to 9 minutes.
Listen close, because I'm going to teach you something super important about
Let us know when you're there.
Make sure you remember this.
Yeah, I'm at 9.
Okay, we'll count you when we get there.
Basically, Allegretto explained to beat the tutorial yet. The reason why I wanted Jova to always beat Pedro was because he reminded me of Luke from the later games.
Oh, okay, sure. Go ahead then.
No problem, man. I'll just do my Luke voice just Americanized.
Usually, sorry, go ahead.
Basically, again, we explained a bit of the combat and the special.
I was just using my own internal logic because usually I try to avoid having one of us talk to himself a lot.
Oh, that's the thing, Joe. That's the thing, Pedro. There's like a shit ton of characters who have the voice.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. By the way, Pedro.
Yeah, I know that's why I always try my best in my playthroughs to try to distribute the roles as much as I can.
Yeah. Anyway,
we talked over 9 minutes.
That's okay. This was just a battle anyway.
Wait. So wait. Did you say you're at 9? Okay then. I'll count you in for that. Almost there. Shiroi, anything to say on the scene?
It's a sewer level.
Well, it was just a combat. It was just combat.
I'm sure Valentine would have a field day against those rats, eh? Okay, Tio, get ready in 3, 2, 1, click.
Yeah, I apologize for the treasure chest because I already have max items anyway, so I don't get anything from the chest themselves. So
force of habit.
I'm not showcasing all of them, but might as well for the ones that I show for the case of pointing out. Also, New Game Plus is really tough on its own, so even if I make it look easier, it's just because of a save file. Trust me, things gets tough already from the beginning if you're in New Game Plus normally. And soon enough, they will become tough, even for me in the save file. Don't
One
worry
kind
about
of challenge
that.
I do like is like with for people with ranged weapons. While yes, that means you don't have to move as much as say a physical one would have to do. This
Oh yeah, I
wasting
don't know
all
if you
your
talked
action
about
gauge.
Overgone, but yeah, again, the fact that beat a 10-year-old kid against monsters as a defense, a fucking gun.
And yet
I know
this is where
I know it's a JRPG and everything, but damn,
the sad thing is that this is apparently where they live, so that means they deal with this on a daily
regular
basis.
basis. Also, get used to the fact that bosses are damage sponges because we have a shit ton of HP. Keep in mind, guys, again, I make it look easy, but it's not.
Not
It'll
only-
be more apparent near the end of the game.
Not only that, but oh boy, Shiroi, it's our favorite, the kind of boss that doesn't have a health bar, so you have no idea how close you are to actually beating it.
I only really hate this in RPGs because the boss fights have ridiculously large health. So
Yeah. Okay, Pete, you can stop waving your hand.
in any other kind of game, I don't mind. It's just RPGs.
Alright, time for some explanation. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the, well, I'll
Oh,
mention it after this
Beat is-
cutscene.
You know, Beat for a 10-year-old is actually pretty thought-provoking.
This is because what he represents. Beat, these two characters, for starters, represents the Chopin at a different age. Well,
Whoa, hold on to you.
Ideally, Chopin.
Hold on to you. Are you suggesting that we're inside Chopin's mind? Because I don't think the game's gotten to that point yet, even though it's kind of obvious, and he's doing the finger point. Oh, just wait, Sam. Just
Objection.
wait.
Anyway, yeah, the alligator is explaining about the fact that everything is taxed. Oh no, anyway, I'll explain more about these later as well. Very
Wow, that is incredibly topical.
And that's why they need us to help them, right?
Yeah. The only thing
I
that's not
wonder
taxed-
why.
Ah,
We'll find out.
I see.
that seems awfully
This explanation
convenient.
is fine because Beat is essentially the audience.
Ah, the hair.
So Alligator is explaining it in simpler terms so that also the audience can understand. The
You're
thought
looking
process-
incredibly pale there.
It looks like his hair is struggling to
Hey,
come out.
It's weird. It looks like his hair is completely separate from his model
There
there.
is also some clipping here and there if you pay attention once in a while.
Now, for the character designs themselves, they look pretty good, honestly.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
they
I
have
really
more
like the art
complicated
direction
clothes,
here.
but it's a JRPG. It should be. It's the norm at this point.
You know what I mean? Cool. In terms of getting outfits that are good enough
Anyway,
to
we're back
animate,
to Polka and Rubber. Alright, this is a good time for me to explain because Polka is just shut in a room because crawling in my skin, these wounds will not heal. Anyway, Beat represents Chopin when he was just a kid. His passion for photography, for example. That was a thing that Chopin reportedly had when he was very little. And a more optimistic, if not naive, vision of the world.
all
a
right,
common
he
thing
has a
will-
camera.
A common thing will be characters saying to Beat that the world does not function, is not a giant, sweet. It has its ups and downs, unfortunately. Don't mind the jumping back and forth. It's a thing that the game does also in the cutscene between.
I mean, here it makes sense because they're obviously going to be dual protagonists.
At least for the time being. Purple conjunction in a second. Anyway, I'll let because it's important.
Did you notice that magician girl from yesterday?
It turns out they know Polka. If you had
Oh,
an evil
her.
eye,
Right.
you may have spotted both of them in the beginning cutscene where Polka was in the plaza.
Yeah.
I guess I should have taken a picture of her.
I don't know.
Are you still messing around with that stuff? You need to look at things
But
with
I'm
your own
technically
two
doing it
eyes.
through the lens of a camera.
You'd see things a whole lot clearer.
There you
if
go,
you weren't always looking at
metaphor,
them through
basically.
bent glass.
That's not what photography's about at all, Redo. And another thing, it isn't
It's
called
not
bent
Leviosa,
glass.
it's Leviosa.
called
Oh,
lens.
Wow. Bit weird considering as how this is quite a while before George Eastman. But I digress.
Not only that,
You have to feel
the
sorry
fact
for
that
the
these
girl.
two kids
I
were
guess she won't
orphans,
be around for
Beat
much
still
longer.
manages to know everything about photography.
What?
In fact, does anyone else even mention photography in this universe?
Yes, a mechanic is to use a special attack ability to make photos of enemies that you can sell in shops.
Not just that, Theo. Again, how did you even come to know all this knowledge to begin? I get it. This is a dream world. It doesn't have to make
But
sense.
the thing, no, yes, but the thing,
Spoilers,
these
but I
two are
digress,
orphans.
Oh,
I think
There you go. I think Allegretto just explained. The idea is, oh, there you go.
No, it's not. You can't
Basically,
use
the
magic
idea is
powers
that the
unless
common
you're really sick.
idea is that people think that
This world's pretty
people can
messed
use
up.
magic have incurable disease, and by extension, they fear
That's
that
why
they are
no one in
contagious,
town
even though they're clearly not.
yesterday.
Allegretto, for example, is a firm believer that this creed is bullshit.
That's right.
So,
Yeah,
know,
there
this,
you go.
isn't
this
actually
reminds me of that guy who Polka cured, who looked like he was gonna die. So, what's that guy's mindset?
It's weird.
Oh god, I know I was gonna die, but now I may have been doomed to die by someone who saved me.
Topical! Jesus Christ, this game.
Yeah.
And they'll ignore almost anything else that
Wow,
doesn't
that's
happen
like
directly.
topical 4 times in a row.
I guess.
I mean, again, the game is preachy,
As long as they
but
have food on
boy,
the
some of
table,
its morals are
they don't
still
care if
active
other
today.
people out there are
Yeah.
starving.
Maybe this game would have done better if it were released in a later generation. You know, both for
It's funny you
itself.
mentioned that, Jova. I honestly came to believe that this is a PS2 game that just got delayed until it silently until it was made
Okay,
for the
Pete.
next
We
generation.
leave first
Oh
thing
my
in the
god,
morning.
it would have fit in that time frame too. And oh my god,
Anyway,
surprise!
they took the decision. Allegretto and Beat will go to Forte Castle to, and only now we're getting credits, to Forte Castle to ask about a reduction of the taxes, to explain the problem of the poor people.
And this is what finally brings about the opening
Yeah,
credits.
I don't get it either. Honestly, I thought that this would have been like at the end of a demo segment. That ideally, demo is the first dungeon, and then you get the credits here to symbolize by the main game. But no, there was no demo for this game, so I don't know. Anyway, let me continue.
Nozumi Shibihara, good job. I'll give
Anyway, let me
you that.
continue. There you go, Motobi Sakura is the composer. Beat represents Chopin as he was little, with his morals and everything. Allegretto represents Chopin in his
Adolescence.
teen phase, teenager phase, where he was a bit more angsty, but it
Oh,
was
sorry,
still very...
I have to say this. The world can never seem to describe whether or not Sam Riegel's last name is spelled with an A-L or an I-E-O at the end.
And oh yeah, there you go. Very proper voiced by Patrick Sides, but whatever. I'll mention the voice actors as they come along. But the fact is that again, Allegretto is still a bit more idealistic. It's a very strong sense of justice. I think that Chopin will keep constant through this entire life. Anyway,
I think out of the cast of characters, Allegretto is definitely my favorite. And no, that's not just because he tends to act a lot like Phoenix Wright.
he's basically a decoy protagonist. Well, Chopin is technically the real protagonist. Allegretto is where most of the focus is.
And Allegretto just gets stuff done. And trust me, folks, in this game, you'll want people to get stuff done because, as Tia warned, there are pauses, and it's not just, in the scenes, but what the characters actually do.
It's a shame because one of my favorite characters of this game, when you get down to it, does nothing. And I do mean nothing, despite having basically the highest ground when it comes to moral standards. So, damn shame, I guess. And don't even get me started on Crescendo, but we'll get to him eventually. Oh boy. Anyway,
it's really weird.
that's right. What I was saying before. Occasionally, since there are childhood friends, Beat will call occasionally Allegretto Redo. Is a diminutive of that.
Well,
Here's the
aren't they
problem.
brothers?
Well, no, they're just friends.
Really?
Here's the problem.
Redo.
In the Italian version, they changed, only in text, mind you, it was localized only in text, they changed his name into Alle, the first part of his name. Why?
Oops.
Because Retto is the Italian name of part of the human intestine. And it's used, specifically the one connected to your anal capacity. So, yeah.
Wow.
All the words that they pick for these video games sound really bad in other languages, don't they?
I have no idea.
Well, Shiro, it's because
It seems to happen quite a lot.
it's common, Shiro. When people write stuff like this, they're not thinking of other languages most of the time because they don't know them. It's like when Miyazaki was told about the Laputa thing, in Castle in the Sky, his reaction was literally he literally said, "I had no idea," and he literally he said that if he knew beforehand, he would have written it a different name, but he wasn't aware. So
that's right. That's another.
These people had any kind of clue, but it still happens more often.
That's another weird thing. There's a lot of commentary about lighting poison. That was what it's called, lighting smog. The fact that you cannot see stars because the street lights are too bright.
Also, guys, I was looking up the stuff on Wikipedia, and even on Wikipedia, it spells Sam Riegel's name as R-I-E-G-L, as opposed to Regal, like how it's spelled in this game. It's like, poor Sam. I mean, you'd think his last name would be spelled more consistently. Then again, maybe this was just before he got that respect.
basically, in Portuguese, that word it also exists. It's it's
another Latin.
It's from rectum. Yeah.
Well, things always seem nicer in our memories.
Thank you. What does this have to do with the plot?
Basically, Polka is here contemplating what she should do with her life because of how she's treated and everything. Solfez says that she should ignore the complaints.
Special.
Also, isn't it kind of obvious now that when her mother told her, like, if something doesn't get fixed or jump off the cliff, isn't it kind of obvious that now they're talking about her sickness?
Anyway, there we go. We get the.
Oh, and
we do get because now we're getting the title drop, and appropriately so, because it's about time for the main protagonist to actually enter the scene. Keep in mind this particular entrance of Chopin. It looks minimal. It looks more subtle, but it actually has more meaning in the grand context of things. The specific moment he enters here.
So in terms of looking like the actual Chopin, would you say they at least,
Nope, let me give you a photo for comparison.
Like at any point in his life, I could only wonder, let's see.
I mean, for the time, Chopin himself was considered handsome looking by the people that were around him. By today's standard, I don't know.
Let's see what he looked like.
Let me get the Wikipedia photo. Yeah, that's right. Chopin actually managed to have a photo of himself. He was one of the lucky people. Oh, Jesus.
Polka, you seem to be taking this whole stranger just popped up behind you thing relatively easy. Now, I get the context, but these people are still supposed to act like actual people. Actually, is now about the time to pretty much give the audience the lowdown about the truth behind the world?
No, Chopin himself will explain in a second.
Is it all really just a dream?
Oh yeah, that's right. Every time we come back here to the real world where Chopin is dying, for some reason the doctor goes completely against his medical ethicality and just spouts bullshit like, oh, he's probably dreaming pleasant things or some shit. I don't get this.
Doctor, what exactly are you trying to do here, if I may ask?
Not only that, people have pointed out on TV tropes, for example, that stethoscopes were not invented at this point.
Yeah, I was about to say, this doctor looks to be dressed a bit too modernly.
Japan, do your research next time, okay?
Which is weird, because there's so much trivia actually about Chopin in this actual game that you think, why did they get all this stuff wrong?
The person you see in the background is going to become important in the real world later on, so for now let's just ignore her.
Okay, judging off of that photo of Chopin, that doesn't even look like how he would look as a teenager.
Nope.
And even still, okay, you could argue, maybe he's supposed to look younger in the dream world. Here's the problem. That's how he looks in the real world at his deathbed.
Again, I guess they just wanted to romanticize the whole thing.
I guess.
Anyway, here we go.
Yeah, well.
As like the doctor said, this will be the make it or break it moment for Chopin himself.
Mm-hmm. And knowing how real life actually went, unlike Anastasia, I think we could know we're in for a very happy ending, I'm sure.
True, but again, this will be one of the crux of the game, the focal point, understanding if Chopin is fully self-conscious of what's going on, or if the dream will slowly kind of poison his mind and make him believe it's true reality, or third option if there's something more that we don't know.
Of course.
Again, I noticed that immediately the first time I see it, but again, there is a parallel with, at least from what I see so far, of Ni no Kuni 2. But again, I want to say that despite the similarities, the comparison just ends here. The circumstances of which Roland gets teleported to Evan's world are relatively different. Despite him dying from nuclear attack, he's not on his deathbed, he was not like these composers, so the world is not shaped around this image, and he doesn't have a dilemma on the fact that he's gonna get back, at least from what I've seen so far again.
Now,
Instead, Chopin will have this doubt constantly, even though he will not stress the player and the other characters too much about it.
I will point out this. I do like this idea, and yeah, Chopin pretty much comes out and says himself. There is one issue I do take with it, though, how some characters kind of take the idea of, oh, this is all his dream world thing, a little too easily.
To be fair, Joe, I remember side characters actually get called out by the one who have common sense.
Oh, yes, absolutely. But what I'm saying is, like, well, I feel like maybe this should have been something that they could have maybe tried to have revealed later down the line as opposed to, like, at the very opening of the game. Because if the dilemma is whether or not Frederick Chopin is going to die, we know he's gonna die unless they actually go outside.
Instant friendship. Basically, through their talking and their similarities, Polka decided to basically befriend kind of like Frederick because she sees a bit of herself in him due to their condition. So basically, we're gonna build a relationship of trust here. It's purely platonic, so shippers, get away from your keyboards here. So
that's a futile effort, and you know it. But
to be fair, the game itself officially ships Polka with someone else. So it's
absolutely.
Fine like that.
I will say this though, it's like, I do like the relationship they have here. Again,
I agree because it starts slowly again, but it shows by the end of the game, it shows like we're actually two kind of friends. I would say more than any of the other characters, the relationship between every other character, because this is the one that's a bit developed the most, and once again, Polka and Chopin himself have similar conditions to one another. Polka herself is the one that has the biggest connection of all to Chopin himself, at the point that I will not tell immediately, Chopin himself will tell in a little part what Polka represents to him.
Again, I'm just going to put it like this. I feel that them pretty much going out, oh, this is obviously just Chopin's dream. I feel that revealing it as early as they did kind of takes away from
Well, that's the
some
thing.
bits.
That's the thing, Jova. The game tells you that, but through the rest of the game, it will lay layers of ambiguity that, again, serves both to Chopin and to the player to actually question if this truly is just Chopin's dream or is something more. And by the end of the game, the truth will be revealed, and let me tell you, it's not as easy as it may be. If anything, it's way overcomplicated for this type of world.
That's kind of part of the issue. It's like, well, again, why bother telling us the truth but then trying to make it seem ambiguous? Like, why not just have it be a mystery from the get-go?
Well, that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. Chopin himself is adamant at the beginning that it's one side of a spectrum, but that's the thing. It starts strongly, but soon enough it deteriorates because the mystery is presented from the very beginning. Characters question him almost immediately, in a sense, saying that, so it's your dream, why can't you do anything that you want, similar to Friday the 13th, basically applying Friday the 13th logic.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, A Nightmare on Elm Street, I'm using my horror movies here.
Yeah.
Anyway, cool thing that you can do in New Game Plus, you can go into Polka's chamber and Polka's room and find an alternate costume for her.
Oh, nice. Does everyone have alternate costumes, or is it just
only the one you see? Polka, Allegretto, and Beat. They were added on the. They were a bit of an extra that got added into the PS3 version. But I can tell you this, Jova. They are, if you select them, they stack also in cutscene, because that's another thing that I didn't mention. There are no CG cutscene. Everything is done in-game here. It's also another cool thing, and a good point for me to mention this. The characters' movement are clunky, yes, but thanks to the cell shading and presentation, this is a particular game that I think aged greatly. It's still rough around the edges about, for example, textures when it comes to, for example, trees or some type of ground layer. But for the most part, you could mistake it for a game that was made, like, say, in 2012 or 13, instead of 2017.
Lag and everything, but I digress.
Nah, well, it was just a bit of frame rate issue, like I mentioned.
Yeah, I'm not going to make a big deal out of it. You know, I mean, for one thing, it's a PS3 game.
Of course, it's not enough to save entirely the game from its problems, obviously. But I do believe it contributes to having its charm, and what ultimately, for me, I managed to appreciate the game despite these evident flaws.
It's a game that has a fantastically unique concept, and that could learn to a fantastic game if they had put a bit more thought into the ideas.
I would say this, Bo, and I will stress again when we'll get down to when I will explain the major differences between the Xbox 360 version. I will say this: if in just 1 year they managed to completely turn the table to the game, I would have been amazed to see what we could have done with just a little more time. Similar to a situation to what you told me, Pedro, about Aladdin on the Sega Genesis Mega Drive. In the sense that if the dev team had more time to do it, it would have probably turned out even better than this.
Okay, no, I got a few questions.
Sure, go ahead.
Since we talked over, when Polka was talking with her mother and introducing...
It was basically a sub-optional dialogue. She was introducing it to Frederick, and Solfege apparently was surprised to see him here, but surprised as someone seeing an old friend. But here's the problem, Chopin just arrived.
So, am I correct in thinking that maybe Polka's mother actually is supposed to be the allegory for George?
No. George Sand is represented by another character, which will later on.
Yeah, they look exactly alike. It would have been so easy, but you know what? Might as well not get on that. Now, my next question: why are we going through this war story-wise?
Polka wants to show Chopin something because
couldn't wait till daytime when it's safe.
Nope.
Remember, Jova. Remember, Jova. She doesn't have that long to live, so she's not exactly the kind of gal who likes to wait.
Not only that, what she needs to show him can only be seen at night. And no, people, get over it. It's not something malicious. But first, boss fight.
Of course, we have to get through this warthog just to show him what she wants to show him.
I think we mentioned it after this boss fight, the fact that it's a classic RPG excuse in a sense. I think the monsters are getting more vicious as of late.
Yeah, and you know what? I won't raise too big a stink about that. Oh my god, her weapon is literally her umbrella.
A parasol, technically. Anyway, cutscene.
I guess it's kind of dangerous out here when it's late at night. The animals in the forest never
we need
what
something
is that doing?
By the way, you never
basically, for context, Polka asked a question to Chopin and says, if it's your dream, you know what I'm thinking right now.
Of course. This is all just a story in my mind. So I'm sure
Polka, where are you going?
See what I mean? That kind of movement, that's the problem with the mocap.
Wait.
We're trying to convey a gesture, but the hand movement is so minimal that it doesn't work.
It's interesting too. It's another parallel because Roland does that gesture that they're trying to do a lot in Inokuni 2.
Again, I'm so willing to think Akira Hino actually played or saw this game and wanted to reference it somehow. I wouldn't be surprised.
You know,
there you go. It's about time for the spectacle. These are particular flowers, as Polka will explain.
It should be interesting.
And they glow only by night.
Okay, that's beautiful.
Don't ask me how it works because of photosynthesis. We're applying Fergali logic. It's magic.
I mean, hey, it's a world basically where everyone has a musical name.
Look, Shiro, look how beautiful the flowers look.
Similar to the lunar tears in Nier, will become basically some sort of symbol entire game.
Now, this is a nice visual spectacle.
I think, in Japanese.
Yeah. Well, normally on their own, Shiro, there's the whole language of flowers thing, but Japan particularly loves it. Anyway, that Polka is playing.
What are they?
I think they're flowers.
They're flowers.
They're like a reflection of the starry sky on the meadows.
So, no stars shine brightly, but...
This is the
Oh,
only
I
place they
get
bloom
it.
in the
It's only when
forest.
it's completely dark and in the middle of the forest. That makes sense.
These
There you go,
flowers
only
never
at
bloom
night.
During the day, only at night. When the sun is up, they stay in their buds, but they're able to absorb
Of
sunlight
course.
with their leaves.
And then we release it then.
And after night falls, they let out all the light they've stored when they blossom. It always happens at a
How did
So
you
that's
discover
why
it the
somebody
first
would
time,
be up at
sweetie?
3 a.m.
You're 14. You shouldn't stay up that late.
They're beautiful. Absolutely stunning. It truly is a wondrous sight.
Can we see more of that sight?
But they
Oh,
also
in a
call
second,
death
Jova,
lights.
because they have a double meaning.
Death lights?
Uh-oh.
The sun brings life, but the dark brings death. And these flowers bloom in darkness. So, darkness is evil, light is
Actually,
light.
yes, Pedro, that's what it's supposed to mean. Misconception of people generalizing on the concept.
I know. It's just
Except
that the fact. It's just that this just sounds hilarious
the
today.
the thing that I would argue is Erin Fitzgerald. I don't particularly care over her as a voice actress.
Also-
I don't think her delivery in the roles that I listen to her is particularly good.
Not only that, but this allegory seems a little too obvious. Like, okay, look.
There's the thing, Jova. Similar to the Marvel Universe, the citizens in this world are kind of flip-flopping idiots.
Let me put it like this. In Kingdom Hearts, it made sense that people didn't get on that darkness is needed because, well, from what we've seen in Kingdom Hearts, darkness pretty much only brought pretty much crap
Oh,
stuff
there you
to
go.
anyone
There you go.
involved.
We're explaining. Basically, Polka is explaining that the Heaven's Mirror is basically a metaphor for her. Other people has to decide if just call it an Heaven's Mirror, basically just a person to love and care and respect, or a death light, like a person with a disease that's contagious needs to be avoided.
Lovely.
And to prove my
Oh.
point, you didn't read
Oh.
my mind earlier.
I mean, to be fair, I've had plenty of dreams where I can't read other people's minds, and it's
So there you
so...
go. Polka has decided that she's also gonna leave Tenudo, and she's gonna go to Forte Castle to talk about the mineral powder and the floral powder problem.
Why? Because this...
Basically, she thinks she doesn't have a lot of time to live, so she wants to do something meaningful for the others.
Bringing happiness to
Huh,
others.
you know, okay, that's a good enough segue. You know, like, well, Chopin himself is dying. Probably wants to do as much as he can with
That's a
his
thing
life.
that you need to notice, because the game also will ask. Multiple times, the game will ask, the characters will ask to Chopin, why is he doing also this journey? And Chopin, most of the time, doesn't really have an answer. He just decides to tag along because he wants to see the end of what he just considers his dream.
And maybe he considers it also, well,
A
he's
test.
subconsciously doing it.
He thinks ultimately chooses that this is a test that he needs to overcome in some form of capacity. So he's just rolling along and seeing what it may lead to be. But again, pay attention in the rest of the game to how Chopin interacts with other characters in general and what his impact on the overall plot is. It's again peculiar for how the end turned out.
Now, okay, story quirks like this are actually really good about this game. However, you may have noticed another issue here. Cutscenes like this go on a bit too long.
This was released around the same time of Metal Gear Solid 4, and I almost dare to think Track Crescendo actually took inspiration from that in terms of exposing cutscenes. This is the problem. Metal Gear Solid 4 had a very good reason for doing such a thing.
Metal Gear Solid 4 was
Yeah.
literally trying to wrap up 10 years of lore.
Exactly.
Not only
This
that,
instead
but a
is
lot
just
was
new
happening.
IP.
Not only that, a lot was happening in those cutscenes in Metal Gear Solid 4. Like, even if people were talking, a lot of stuff was going on in the background. There were explosions. There
I
was
get
alarms
that this
going
is
on.
more of a similar to a track. This is more of an educational game that's used to explain Chopin's life and music in general, rather than be a straightforward RPG. But if you want to capture an audience, you need to have faster cutscenes and dialogue.
And if
It
you're going
doesn't
to have
need
long cutscenes, don't just
Again-
have your characters standing around.
Yeah, again, it doesn't need to be the opposite side of the spectrum because no one likes super fast dialogues where you don't understand what's going on. But you can be allowed to go a bit faster once in a while.
Yeah.
Anyway, see you for the next part.
See ya.
See you then.
So yeah.